it's Sparrow, and we are back with Advanced Lesson 2. For this lesson, we are going to be talking about split rings, which are possibly one of my favorite things ever. I use them a lot. Split rings are made with two shuttles, so this is where last month's lesson with using two shuttles, the advanced method, the way that I do my chains, is going to come in very handy. It's going to make this very easy to understand and pretty simple for you. This is the pattern for this month. This is called Bind, and this is made with size 20 thread. Makes a nice little choker or wrap bracelet. And as you can kind of tell if you look really close, this whole center of these rings are made all in a row, and then these chains are added afterwards, which is where you have this ability to make these chains kind of not have to be connected to the start or end of a ring, but can just go around the outside. And in order to do that, we are going to use these two shuttles here, my basic setup that I always use, with my arrow shuttle as being my shuttle 1 and my clover shuttle as being my shuttle 2. I'm going to use two different colors so you can really see how this works. This bright neon green and magenta plum pink. So to start a split ring, we're going to just start by making a regular ring. And I'm just going to do a basic, let's see, let's just do 4, and I'm going to make a picot, and then 4 just to keep it easy. Okay, so now I have the start of my split ring. And if I wanted to make this a regular ring, I could. I would just go ahead and close it. But before we do that, we want to add some stitches along this side. Because the point of a split ring is that if I were to close this, my start and my end would be at the same spot. But with a split ring, I'm going to make my start and my end at two different spots. And I apologize if that sounds confusing. My brain is not functioning very well today, so I'm doing the best I can with trying to explain this in words, but it's easier just to show you what I mean. So the first thing I'm going to do is take my hand ring off of my hand and flip it around. So this is how we would normally hold it to continue making stitches. And I am going to turn it upside down and put it back around my hand. So now I have my tail thread from my start here, and my shuttle 1 is going down towards my palm, kind of just hanging there. We don't need it right now. It can just hang out. And with my shuttle 2, I am going to start the other half of my split ring. And I'm going to do those unflipped reverse stitches, just like I do when making my chains, where we do the second half first and leave it unflipped, and then first half second. And I'm going to do the same pattern I did as the other side to make it even. So I'm going to do 4 double stitches, unflipped and in reverse. And I'm going to make a picot just like I would if I were making a chain. Just leave my space. 3 and 4. And now I have a ring that is still open. But now you can see I have two different colors here. So when I close this, I'm going to use my shuttle 1 to close it. And now, well, if I didn't have a knot. So sometimes you get knots like this when you're trying to close your ring, and that's because there's a lot of excess twist built up in your thread. A lot of people will complain about the Lisbeth thread in particular about having a lot of twist. which I do find to be true. This is the Lisbeth size 10 that I'm working with. And there's a couple ways you can avoid that. One is to check your thread, just hold it up and let your shuttle spin and it'll kind of unwind itself. My personal opinion is that this twist does not come from the thread itself, it comes from the way that it is wound on the ball. So when you unspool it, usually you're pulling it off like this and all of the twist that is on this ball ends up in the thread. So that's one reason that you'll see a lot of twists built up in them. I don't have a really good solution for avoiding it aside from unwinding the entire ball and kind of pulling the twist out of it, and that's a pain in the butt, so I don't really do that. But I just kind of deal with it. You know, it's just something you get used to. Anyways, back to the lesson. Like I said, my brain's a little scattered today, so now we have our split ring. And as you can see, I have my start tails on one side, and I have my continuing working thread on the other side. So that's why it's called a split ring, because it is literally split in half. And if I were doing this in one color, I could even start it continuous thread method without having tails, and it would look like a regular ring, but where you ends up in a different spot. So this is very useful for continuing work to a different portion. To show you an example of that, let me just pull something out here. So this is a piece I've been working on kind of just in my spare time, haha, as if that exists. So split rings are useful, like if I'm here, let's say, okay, so this round here that I just completed is all chains all around this outside. And you can see actually here is where I started and ended. And because I still had thread left on my shuttle, I didn't want to just cut and then start a new ring and have more ends to sew in. So this ring here is actually a split ring where my start thread, where my thread from the previous round ended up, was here. And if I lay this over here, you can kind of see what I mean. So with my shuttle 1, I made this half of the ring, and then with my shuttle 2, I traveled that thread up and then was able to come here and start this next round without having to cut away my work and then start a whole new round entirely. So it's very useful for things like that, and when done like this, it's pretty much invisible once you have practiced with it a little bit. It makes it very easy to move from one round to another. There are some other little tricks that I had to use to do that, but we'll get to those later. So that's one reason that split rings are very handy. And another reason is because you can make just long pieces where you can just continue making rings. So if I continue this pattern of 4 picot 4, or I could even vary it up if I wanted to. So, okay, let's say I wanted to do 3 picots, or 3 stitches. And then flip it over and do my other half here. And I could just continue making just rings all in a line. And as you can see, my shuttle 1 thread and my shuttle 2 thread always stay on the same side. So as I go along, like so. So you can actually do some really cool effects with using two colors like this, and you don't have to make each side equal. So let's say I did this and then I wanted to come up here and do another round here. I could, let's see, well here, let's make a little pattern here. Let's do our little 3 double stitch ring, 3 and 3. Okay, so now if I wanted to kind of turn a corner and come up the other way, I could do 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then using my shuttle 2, I could complete the rest of the ring. Do 4, and then 4, and then another 4 to make sure that I have the same number of double stitches as my previous ring, but I'm just putting them in different spots with the thread that I'm using. And now when I close this ring, my end is going to be on the side rather than the bottom, like so. And because rings are not perfectly round, they always have this sort of oval shape. There's always a pointed bottom with a more oval shape. You're going to kind of notice that no matter where you put your end, that's where the pointed side is going to be. But that's okay. For the most part, that's a very small detail. If I were to continue this, let's see. So if I wanted to come back down the other way and make another row, I would do the same thing again. So you can put your ending spot wherever you want, really, and just kind of play around with it. So now I have successfully turned a corner, and now I could make a whole row of rings coming back the other way. And as you can see, it really does make this really cool effect when you've got these two colors like this. And it's really not that difficult, especially if you have practiced the reverse unflipped stitches from lesson 1, advanced lesson 1. I always tell people tatting is one of those things, it's so funny because so many people think it is so difficult to learn, and that is really because you have to learn the hardest thing first. Learning how to make the double stitch and how to hold everything can be very tricky for some people. But after that, after you've got that down, everything else is really pretty simple. There's no extra stitches to learn. It's all just a matter of learning how to manipulate the stitches different ways. So if you can get your brain past that concept of making the double stitch, and especially if you really pay attention to the construction of the work rather than just making the motions. If you really learn how to get down and dirty with how the stitches are actually formed and why you do things a certain way, it makes everything else after that really pretty easy. And this is why some people will spend a whole lot of time on just the basics, and then after they've got the basics down, they pick up everything else very quickly because it's really not hard. So there we go. There we have it. Split rings. Yay. So the pattern for this month is available in the pattern section and in a separate post. You can go download that, or you can just play with them and do just come up with a random number and just make as many as you want, just to play with it and see what happens. And as always, if you have any questions or comments, drop them below. Yeah, have fun. Bye.